Have you ever come across an animal that made you stop and think, what if no one helps? That moment where you realize that if you walk away, it might not make it. That's exactly what happened to Robert when he found Whisper. He wasn't looking for an animal to rescue. He wasn't planning to take in a tiny, fragile creature. But sometimes life puts something right in front of you and you have to decide, do I help or do I walk away? And this one decision, it changed everything. Because what started as one tiny helpless animal soon turned into something much bigger. And by the end of this story, you'll see just how much of a difference one person can make. So let me ask you, what would you do if you found a tiny baby animal, alone, no mother, no siblings, no one to take care of it? Would you take it in? Would you assume nature would figure it out? That was the choice Robert had to make. He found this tiny thing, barely 4 weeks old, all alone. He guessed it had been part of a litter, maybe 6 or 7 others, but for some reason, it was the only one left behind. Why? No one knows. Maybe it was too weak. Maybe the mother got scared and ran. Maybe something happened to the others. But that didn't change the fact that this little creature was completely alone. And if Robert didn't step in, there was a good chance it wouldn't survive. So he did. At first, he didn't even know what to do. The tiny thing was so small, the only thing he could feed it was milk. He had never done anything like this before, so every feeding felt like a life or death task, and it was exhausting. But he kept going. And over time, he started calling him Whisper. By the time Whisper was 5 weeks old, something changed. He had one eye open, a tiny chubby belly, and he was starting to explore. He wasn't just surviving anymore, he was growing. Robert made him a cozy little sleeping bag, something warm and soft. And Whisper, he loved it. By the 7th week, Whisper was walking around like he owned the place. He had so much energy that Robert realized something. He needed more space. So he started building a bigger enclosure, a place where Whisper could run, climb and explore, a place that would prepare him for the wild. But there was a problem. See, Whisper was getting too used to people. He didn't have any fear. He wasn't cautious. He was just comfortable. And that was a big problem. Because Whisper wasn't supposed to stay with Robert forever. The plan was always to release him back into the wild. But how could he survive if he thought humans were safe? That's when Robert knew Whisper needed a friend of his own kind. So he started searching. And then one day he got a call from Norfolk. Someone had found another tiny creature, all alone, just like Whisper. Same age, same situation. Robert didn't hesitate. He made a few calls, took a trip, and came back home with a new little rescue. She was shy, quiet, scared. He named her Stuart. And now came the real test, introducing Whisper and Stuart to each other. Would they get along? Would they be scared? Would they fight? Neither of them had ever seen another of their kind before. Robert watched closely. And then, something incredible happened. Within half an hour, they were playing, like they had known each other forever. From that moment on, they were inseparable. By the 9th week, Whisper and Stuart were full of energy. They ran, climbed, played non-stop. Robert knew they needed even more space. So, he expanded their enclosure, making it bigger and more complex. And here's what's funny, their personalities were so different. Stuart, she was cautious. She would peek out from behind rocks, watching before she moved. Whisper, he was fearless. He dived right into every new challenge, exploring like he was born to be wild. And then, the rivalry started. Whisper and Stuart were best friends. But they were also competitors. Every time Whisper had food, Stuart would try to steal it. And then, Robert did something crazy. He added a pond to their enclosure. And they loved it. They splashed, played, ran through the water. It was like a whole new world for them. And that's when Robert knew they were ready. By week 10, it was time to let them go. Robert had always known this moment would come. But that didn't make it any easier. Would they be okay? Would they remember what he taught them? Would they survive? He didn't know, but he had to trust them. Stuart was the first to step forward. She sniffed the entrance, took a few careful steps, looked back, and then walked into the wild. Whisper followed. And just like that, they were gone. Robert watched them go, feeling a mix of emotions. He had spent weeks raising them, protecting them, teaching them, and now he had to let them go. And today, Robert is still rescuing and protecting wildlife in Yorkshire. Because what started as one tiny rescue turned into a lifelong mission. So here's the thing. This whole story, it happened because one person cared. One person saw an animal that needed help and actually did something about it. And that person could be any of us. If more people took a little time to care, to protect, to make small changes, imagine how different the world could be. So if this story meant something to you, share it. Because the more people that care, the more animals that get a second chance. And sometimes, all it takes is one person to make a difference.